Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News. Drama already after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix with Max Verstappen, it seems, already making moves here in this off-season. It was confirmed today that his personal trainer is stepping away from the role at Red Bull. He will be looking for an alternative. Rumour has it he's gone to his former teammate Carlos Sainz and has poached his personal trainer away to come and work for him at Red Bull. This comes at an interesting time for Sainz, with his future at Ferrari beyond this next season questions after Vasseurs' comments just the other day. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Now, this picture is not photoshopped. It is another legitimate picture from post Abu Dhabi. These type of pictures always cause a lot of controversy, right? Because we know that Toto and Horner, as much as they might despise each other on the surface, they kind of love each other deep down. But, you know, a lot of the vitriol between them is definitely legitimate, and they do go at each other's necks relatively often. I'm sure there's some degree of respect, and, well, I don't know how much more complicated than that their relationship goes. It does always cause a bit of drama, though, among Mercedes fans, because whenever they see this, they think, damn, you know, Toto's meant to be at war with this guy. And sure, at the end of the season, you put differences aside and have a nice picture and have a drink or whatever. And I get it, but I know that some Mercedes fans would prefer Toto Wolff to be, you know, to not take pictures such as this and to be all business, right? Because otherwise people are going to think, oh, Toto's gone soft or whatever. Personally, I'm not so sure it matters. I think it's kind of a nice picture for posterity as well. But there's definitely some that see ulterior motives in stuff like this. Of course, season over for everyone. Hamilton, Leclerc, others making social media posts about the season's done, looking forward to next year because, let's be honest, it was only Carlos Sainz, we'll discuss him in a second, that got a victory this season out of the two Red Bull cars, and Perez didn't get many either right at the start of the season only. Now, there could still be a change to the grid lineup for next year. Logan Sargeant has been speaking for some time about his future at Williams. James Vowles has never confirmed that he was going to stay, but it was definitely heavily implied that Sargeant was potentially their top priority. But it's got to be said, after a good quali in Las Vegas, he bottled qualifying Sargeant with 2 laps that were outside of track limits deleted during qualifying in this race. Didn't have a good Grand Prix. Neither did Albon, to be fair, but still over the course of the season, Albon outbeat him by like 41-2 or 42-2 over all the races and the qualifyings over the season. So did Sargeant show massive improvements? Not enough for me to consider him to be the best option for that seat next season. So Williams are not locking him in, and James Vowles says he will always remain a part of our academy. We are not in position to confirm at this point in time, proud of the steps that he's made. This reads to me like a money thing, you know? This is how it quite often is for that second Williams seat, for example. Can Logan Sargeant bring in the sponsors that they would like to have for their team? If he can, he's probably going to stay. If there are better options out there, probably financially, because, you know, look, there are better drivers, I think, than Sargeant they could get for that seat. But it's not necessarily so much about that for Williams. You know, they're still operating on a budget to some degree, and, you know, the money that, let's say, Latifi used to bring was quite valuable to the team. Now, with better sponsors and partners and development over the last couple of years, the budget cap, they don't have to worry so much about that, but, you know, I'm sure money for these type of seats is still a factor, so they're biding their time here. Is Sargeant more or less than 50% likely to stay? I think maybe he's about 50% right now. I don't know. It's kind of tough to call. We know that Toto Wolff apparently was pushing hard for Mick Schumacher to get this seat, but that didn't seem to happen. He's now going to Alpine's WEC project and will stay on as Mercedes reserve for the new year. But still, all things could change. And if Sargeant stays, this is the first time, I think, ever that all 20 drivers that finished the season will drive for the same teams the next season again. Now, technically, there has been a change because last year we started with De Vries, and now we have Ricciardo. But from the end of this season, as in yesterday, to next season, I don't think it's ever happened that every driver is in the same seat as the year before. And, well, Sargeant is the make or break, I guess, in that scenario. Of course, the AlphaTauri has raised many interesting questions because they developed over the course of a season, bringing many Red Bull concepts and ideas to their car to such an extent that they were, what, the 5th or 6th fastest car really, AlphaTauri, at the end of the season. They were looking very good, and Williams only held on to 7th because Tsunoda couldn't get P6, which was, you know, maybe not achievable on the day because nobody DNF'd really up front, but he got P8, and that was still a very good job done. Hamilton, of course, concerned concerned, as you should be, about the pace of the Red Bull. Max still won by quite a margin in a car that hasn't been upgraded in a very long time. So there's definitely some concern that Red Bull, well, we see where they are now. Where might they be in a few months after more development has gone into that car than maybe even other teams have managed, especially when AlphaTauri, or let's call them Racing Bulls, or whatever they're going to be called next season, I think it's probably going to be something like Visa, Visa, Cash App, Racing Bulls. It's going to be a shambles. We'll stay tuned. But they've made progress. Teams are definitely concerned and have actually, I think, voiced complaints about this now to the FIA to say, look, are we sure this is fair that they can bring so many parts from the Red Bull to next year's car? They are very confident that next year is going to be really good. And man, if we turn up to Bahrain and it's Verstappen, Perez, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, or whatever as the top four, I think there's going to be a lot of questions raised, even based on what happens, let's say, in testing, and maybe it's not entirely out of the realms of possibility. Of course, while Red Bull emphatically won at Bahrain in 2023, the year before it was a 1-2 for Ferrari, Leclerc leading out Sainz on that occasion with Hamilton P3 after the double Red Bull DNF. But lots of talk lately about Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, especially when Fred Vasseur said after yesterday's Grand Prix, it was not strategy that cost P2 and the constructors. To be fair, it was over the course of a season. It's not just the final race you win or lose it. It's over the entire season you win or lose it. Ferrari probably didn't do enough. The Leclerc failure at Bahrain this year, the engine, the energy store, the penalties as a result. There was a few reasons why they didn't beat Mercedes, but also Mercedes threw away their fair share of points, a few Russell crashes, let's say, throughout the year as well. But Fred Vasseur, we know that he loves Leclerc, and we know that he thinks Leclerc is their number one guy. We need this ambition in the team to have a leader like Charles, who is pulling us along at the moment. It does as well. This is translated from the French, but basically this is what it translated to. And yeah, calling Charles the leader of the team, which I'm sure might not necessarily sit well with Sainz. Now, at the end of the day, Sainz won their Grand Prix this year. There was a stint of a few races where Sainz was stronger than Leclerc, was doing very well, was looking the more competitive of the two Ferrari drivers. I think once they brought an update, maybe it was Suzuka or something, ever since then, it felt like Leclerc had more of a handle on the car, and he's just a quicker driver overall. But Sainz did get the Grand Prix victory this year, but there's been lots of talk about Sainz from other drivers as well, especially after this weekend's drama with the apparently impeding him by giving him some dirty air deliberately. Another driver saying that, well, Sainz does that to us a lot as well, so he gets, what's coming for him. And quite often Sainz will, after a poor performance, will, talk about the team being problematic rather than necessarily taking more personal responsibility. These are just observations that people have made. Whether you think that's accurate or not, that's a debate. But there has been lots of theories that potentially Carlos Sainz could be ousted after 2024 when his contract is over, with maybe Alex Albon. If I had to make a prediction for 2025, I would say that I think Vasseur would rather like Leclerc and Albon to be his driver pairing. But what that means for Sainz, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how potential contract negotiations go, as Leclerc and Sainz will both be seeking extensions, you would think, with Ferrari going forwards. But speaking of Sainz and potential issues for Sainz at Ferrari, we've got to mention the personal trainer drama that was going down today. Firstly, for Michael Italiano. So he was former PT for Daniel Ricciardo, most recently for Yuki Tsunoda. Interestingly enough, in his kind of Instagram farewell post, he doesn't mention Daniel at all, and he just talks about Yuki. Apparently there's some drama between the two of them, nutrition-related stuff. I don't exactly know the full story behind that, but interesting to say the least. And I also saw this tweet going around where Yas says, now that Michael Italiano is leaving F1, do I share his weirdo stories? So, I don't know, I guess stay tuned for that. But not the only personal trainer drama of the day, because Max Verstappen's personal trainer, Bradley Scanes, he leaves the team. I imagine this was decided for a while ago, wants to spend more time at home with his family, and has other work that he wants to do. To be honest, from these guys' perspective, I totally get it, right? Because the amount of traveling you've got to do, the amount of work it is to work with these drivers left, right, and centre, it can't be easy. We know that Angela Cullen earlier this year, I think it was second race in Jeddah, it was confirmed that Cullen and Hamilton were parting ways. She was definitely the most well-known and popular personal trainer and at the times personal assistant, which is a lot of the times what these guys do for their drivers on the grid. And they parted ways. It was kind of unclear why. It's still somewhat unclear why Hamilton and Cullen parted ways, whether Hamilton wanted a different different direction, whether Cullen, it was her decision, but that would be a strange one because it was second race of the season. You'd have thought that had been decided in the off-season, but whatever. This is the scenario. Bradley Skeins leaving Verstappen, therefore Verstappen needs an alternative. Who's he going to get? Rumour has it he is speaking with Rupert Manwaring of Ferrari and Carlos Sainz's longtime personal trainer to bring him in as well. So if you thought that this year's silly season from the driver's perspective was kind of boring, which it was, well, as soon as the off-season happens, we've got personal trainer drama because this report says that leaving the vacancy alongside the three-time world champion, he has poached a talent from a rival team. Sainz's performance coach Rupert Manwaring will leave to make the switch to Red Bull, leaving Sainz now needing to find a new member of his setup. So that's this guy. As we can see, this is during the McLaren days, and of course, Sainz and Verstappen, teammates previously back on Toro Rosso several years ago. This is Manwaring on the left-hand side. Here he is again in Ferrari outfit. So yeah, what do you guys think about this? It's, in many ways, maybe a classic Verstappen move, and sure, if you're this guy and you're getting the opportunity to drive or to work with Verstappen, the best driver on the grid and the reigning world champion, then what are you going to do? But it definitely leaves Sainz in a bit of a predicament, really, when you're getting your main man, who you've been with for some time, stolen away from you in some respects. I don't know that people are saying, oh, he's going to get Max jacked, because Max is not exactly ripped, is he, like some of the other guys are, and that works for him perfectly fine. I wonder what Manwaring is going to get up to there. I wonder if all of a sudden Verstappen's hair is going to be on fleek every single week like Sainz's is. But yeah, this has been reported by Chris Midland, and it's been going around today that this is probably going to be happening. So definitely an interesting story there, and Verstappen, we know he's pretty ruthless, this guy, and well, it doesn't seem like that's changing anytime soon. Interestingly enough, I suppose, Max was not spotted at the drivers' dinner. They did last year, I'm pretty sure, at the same table, the drivers' dinner after 2022, and they got all the drivers there that day. I think that was mainly because Seb was retiring, so I think Hamilton and others tried to really ensure that everybody turned up to that one. But in this one, we've got no Max, we've got no Lando, no Oscar, and a couple of other notable absentees. No Checo, for example, no Logan, no Ocon, stuff like this. But still, Stroll's here and all the boys are here. It's kind of funny. I don't know if Hamilton and Leclerc's relationship has got better, but it feels to me that ever since they were both disqualified from the US Grand Prix, they've kind of become a little bit buddy-buddy. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I'm still kind of a nice picture. But yeah, Sainz and Verstappen didn't have to make any contact yesterday evening after these. Well, I imagine they knew before we did that this was going on. So what does that mean for Ferrari going forward? It might not be so relevant. Sainz can get somebody else in, but I can't imagine that's exactly what he wanted to happen necessarily. I don't imagine he would have chosen for his longtime personal trainer to go and work with Verstappen instead, but that's what it seems is going to be happening. And as I've said before, I wouldn't be massively surprised if next season, let's say 2025, so the year after this upcoming season, it's potentially Albon and Leclerc in that team, and I just don't expect them to extend both of those deals. Sainz is rumoured to go to potentially the Sauber team with Audi, and that's the current word on the street, I guess, as it were. And to be fair, Sainz was up there with Sargeant and Perez in terms of World Destructors Championships, and even Russell, for all, okay, we don't really know how this is all calculated, and sometimes it's not perfect, but even Russell with a fair few instances this season, apparently only was second worst to Verstappen, who did basically no damage to his car because it barely broke down, and usually when you're in P1, you don't get into that many incidents. Also, a bit of drama I wanted to mention here from Sergio Perez. So you guys probably know that after yesterday's Grand Prix, Perez was given the 5-second penalty for the collision with Norris, and he came on the radio shortly after that was dished out saying, I don't agree with this, the stewards are a joke, they've been bad all season. That's basically what he said. Now, the stewards, the FIA, didn't take particularly kindly to this, and they gave him a formal warning for his conduct on this matter. Perez even went as far to apologise and says, "The sport brings out the best in all of us and the passion. I spoke with adrenaline after losing a podium, hard always not having radio live. Most sports, don't have that or whatever, but I owe the stewards more respect. We all have a job to do. I respect the job they have to do in high-pressure situations." So, bit of an apology here from Perez. At the end of the day, regardless of what you think, whether the penalty was deserved or not, I do find it interesting when the stewards are, I wouldn't say they're forcing an apology, but the fact that they're saying, look, Perez, you get a warning for speaking against us in such a manner, saying that the decisions are a joke and all this stuff. I don't know, do you think that's fair? Because as far as I'm concerned, if the stewards were confident their decisions were correct, they wouldn't have to force people to agree, you know what I mean? Because, I don't know, it seems like they're trying to silence some criticism to some extent. I don't know if you guys think that's fine or not. I don't really mind either way, but I don't think the driver should necessarily be punished for saying that decisions are a joke or whatever. Now, to be fair, the comment saying the stewards have been a joke all season, maybe that's a bit too far, but definitely a matter for debate and for controversy. I thought there were some cool things flying around as well. You know, this classic Porsche advert where they say nobody's perfect with all the Le Mans like placings with, I think they basically had everything P1 to P10 apart from BMW Sauber or something where P9, and it's a pretty similar story here with Ferrari. It was the same story in 1988 when McLaren won every race but one. I think it was Monza they lost to Ferrari. So for all the talk about Carlos Sainz, he did very interestingly for the record books deliver a victory here in round 15, but of course after that Verstappen went on a 7-race win streak, and it's crazy because a 7-race win streak is so mega, but it doesn't even feel like much given he had 10 earlier on in the season. Even Christian Horner has made comment on this and basically said, wow, yeah, 21 wins is nice, but it leaves room for improvement. So I don't know how much this is like sarcastic and saying, oh no, well, you know, more than likely next year will be more competitive, or whether he actually is confident they could go for like 24 from 24, because, you know, I'm pretty sure, was it 2015-16, Rosberg's very long and impressive win streak continued over between the seasons. Verstappen's currently on a 7. I mean, would you put it past him continuing that at the start of next season, especially given how the way, you know, the Red Bull has been at Bahrain the last couple of years? Maybe not. I don't know how legitimate Horner's being with this statement. I think, you know, for the sake of next year's competition, we can probably hope that he's being a bit more sarcastic, that he is actually, you know, attempting to go for that challenge for the 100% win rate next year. Haas, though, they haven't won an awful lot lately, and in terms of winning points, they have less points in the last 5 seasons than they did in 2018 alone. It's a funny one, really, because the way they run their outfits, you know, it's obviously a budget operation. They buy everything they can from Ferrari. And sure, at the time they joined the grid, the way that the financial situation was different to today. But definitely people are looking at it thinking, well, how can Andretti not get a spot on the grid with their upcoming partnership with, you know, Cadillac General Motors making an engine for them and everything that's planned from 2028 at the very least? Why are they not allowed onto the grid, or why is that such a point of controversy? Whereas Haas, who arguably adds no value to the sport really, or at least compared to Andretti, that's a massive point of debate, are still here, no problem, despite the fact that they don't do anything really, and they finish last in this year's championship again. And you've got Hülkenberg using like an older setup, older spec car because it works better. You've got Magnussen saying, yep, disappointing that we couldn't make any progress. It's super frustrating. They bring an upgrade, it makes the car worse, if not basically the same. It's just not great for Haas, but I guess we didn't really expect all that much difference. And just one final thing I thought was interesting to mention here that Karun Chanuk put together, the average qualifying battles between teammates this season. The closest battle by quite some margin actually was Mercedes, maybe not a massive surprise. In terms of including sprint shootout qualifyings, Russell actually held the head-to-head 15-12, so I think it was 11-11, but for whatever reason Hamilton generally wasn't as good in the sprint shootouts. Russell had the gap on Hamilton by 200. I mean, super marginal stuff. They're, you know, very well matched over the course of the season. Russell is correct that quite often either Hamilton would have a few tenths in hands or Russell would have a few tenths in hands. That was often not the case last year. So still struggling to find a car that works for both of them, I guess. Leclerc 18-9 against Sainz, but still a pretty tight margin. Verstappen was 25-1 back in only the Baku sprint where Perez beat Max in quali technically. Okay, he technically beat Max in quali on other occasions when Max had issues, such as in Jeddah, but 3/10 on average. Gasly 17-10 over Ocon, very impressive, nearly a 10th advantage as well. Although sometimes watching Alpine race, you'd think that Gasly was the second driver with the strategy calls they make. I'm not gonna lie. Haas was very impressive season from Hülkenberg. Of course, Alonso, Norris was 18-9, but since Spa, Piastri was 8-7 ahead, so a big second half of the season from him. Snowder beat all of his teammates in qualifying, and then yeah, Albon had the biggest gap by far and a clean sweep, so adding more, I guess, weight behind the rumours regarding Sargeant right now. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.